Let me introduce first with Mr. Rox Pollard Jr. He is the Vice President and Director of the Retail Services team for Colliers International South Carolina. He specializes in sale, leasing, and development consultant of retail properties across the state. He manages the retail team, which delivers the retail brokerage and consultation services to clients through Colliers in the three South Carolina offices. He also served as the Central Carolina REALTORS Association in many years over the years, including being its commercial chair from 1999 to 2000. And he served on the Colliers International U.S. Retail Services Group as its national chairman. He has several community involvement, like past president of Columbia Sertoma Club, past president of the Richland County Public Library Board of Trustees, etc. Now, Rox, floor is yours. Let me share your slides and then you can start. Let me see. Can you guys see the slide?
Yeah, we can see it now.
Okay. Right.
Well, thank you very much for having me. When does this class end? We got 5 more minutes or 30 more minutes?
We have till 7 o'clock.
Okay, good. I know everybody's, it's the end of the day and everybody's doing a great job, hopefully paying attention. And I can fully appreciate this. I've been doing this since 1987, that what you heard was a master class from Tony Grant in leases, both from his historical knowledge of them and for his insight into what is going to happen looking forward. And I found that everything he said, both I learned from and also agree with 100%. So, Tony, that was very interesting, and I appreciate how much work and effort you put into preparing for that.
Thank you, Rox.
So my presentation may not be nearly as technical, I guess, as you would say, as the previous two you've heard, but hopefully it's a sprinkling of reality in my particular area of specialty, which is retail. And you heard a lot about that retail commercial real estate, and you heard a lot about that in both previous presentations. One of the things that attracted me to retail real estate when I started back in 1987 was that retail real estate is the one type of commercial real estate that 100% of the population can relate with, because it's what we see, it's what we visit, whether it's to buy a product, to have a meal, conduct business at a bank, go to a medical facility, whatever that may be. And I found that interesting. So I found that is the one type of real estate that's universally relatable to most people. So that's been my area. And I will say that since 1987, and then as I've researched all this over the years, going back further, retail has always been in a state of transformation. Many of you probably don't remember this. I don't actually remember it except for historically, but Sears Roebuck, which now is largely out of business, essentially started the whole concept of e-commerce. There wasn't an electronic way to interact with them, but they were a mail order company. They came full circle to bricks and mortar, and then they declined because they didn't pay attention. So what I want to do is spend a little bit of time talking about retail in general. I'd love questions, but I want to share with you a little bit when Dr. Batabial, excuse me for slaughtering that, asked me to speak. He said this was largely a real estate analysis class, understanding fundamentals of real estate as an investment. So this is a little bit of a granular approach to that look. So that is where I'm headed with this talk, although it may not seem that way initially. So first thing that I wanted to talk about was probably starting 2 or 3 years ago. We heard of this thing called the retail apocalypse, which meant that bricks and mortar was going to go out of business altogether, and we were all going to buy everything virtually or electronically over the internet. If that were in fact the case, the first test I gave it was that occupancies in Yeah, that's good. Then vacancy rates in shopping centers and shopping properties ought to be increasing at an exponential rate. And what you can see in these first two slides is that has not proven to be true. Going back for 5 years, you can see that occupancy rates have held steady in South Carolina markets, major South Carolina markets, going back to 2016. And even if you go back further than that, largely they've stayed the same. What you have heard, though, is very high-profile retailers in that 15 or so thousand that Tony mentioned that have closed are ones that are very visible on the landscape, whether that's Sears or Kmart or JCPenney or any myriad of other stores. So the news is vast from that standpoint. But if you look at the 700 million retail establishments that there are in this country or something crazy like that, it's still a relatively small number that have actually closed. So if you can go forward a couple of slides. This is occupancy in major metro areas. Next slide. This is the Myrtle Beach market, and I put that in there because I know most of y'all are familiar with that since you're in that vicinity. And as you can see, occupancy rates have remained very, very high, even through 2020, the end of COVID. I say the end of COVID, the end of 2020. We'll hope that it's coming to an end. All right, next slide. So the next thing that I wanted to mention, and Tony hit on this already, is there's been this reporting that e-commerce is taking over and that bricks and mortar are gone for good. If you'll shift to the next slide. So what you can see is in 2018, there had been a steep climb and e-commerce accounted for about 10% of gross retail sales. And that was a pretty steep escalator over the previous 5 years. In 2019, you can see that went up 1%. And then, of course, with COVID, we saw a 10% increase. But what I wanted to mention, if you'll go to the next slide, please. If you look at something that's a very interesting phenomenon here, of the top 10 U.S. retail online e-commerce retailers in 2020, 7, I would even say 7.5 if you consider Amazon has some retail presence, particularly with Whole Foods. So 7 to 7.5 of the 10 are bricks and mortar retailers. So once again, if bricks and mortar were going away, you wouldn't see this phenomenon. Now, one thing that doesn't go reported widely, but I know this from working with many of these retailers that are on here, if you place a retail online order at Target, for example, and then you use their pickup option, or Walmart is another example, and you pull up to the store and they bring it out and put it in your car, that is considered an e-commerce transaction in reporting. What's important to know about that is that many of those retailers did not necessarily increase their shipping, but they did radically increase either home delivery or in-person curbside delivery. So that's an important consideration here, that 7 of the 10 retailers are very strong bricks and mortar retailers. That should not go unnoticed. So what I think is going to happen, what the experts think are going to happen, is that 21% is likely to stay stable. And you may even see that plateau or decline a little bit as people return to bricks and mortar or to actual shopping. However, most all retailers will agree that online is here to stay, even if it's curbside pickup or delivery. Okay, next slide. This is just an example of some of the retailers that have been closing. A lot of these you'll recognize. What I want to mention is a lot of these stores, and these stores began closing pre-COVID. COVID certainly accelerated that. If you look at any number of these, many of them had to declare bankruptcy or did declare bankruptcy. That was probably accelerated because of COVID. But a lot of these stores are what I would call homogeneous retailers or homogeneous shopping experiences. They don't offer a product that's unique. And culturally, our society has changed a little bit, and there has been more emphasis with younger generations coming into the shopping fold are people wanting a little more uniqueness. They want a different experience than, say, for example, at Chico's, where every single store sells exactly the same merchandise. People are more conscious about not looking as much like each other and looking more individual. That's true with a lot of the products that a lot of these stores sell, even if they're not clothing. They could be bicycles or Pier 1 imports. Everybody wants their home to be a little more unique than what maybe is found in a typical store like that. So there's some changing shopping patterns that were going on well before COVID that probably were accelerated by COVID. Next slide. Probably the main thing that happened pre-COVID and really accelerated during COVID was, and will accelerate more in 21, 22 and beyond as things reopen, is the emergence of services in the retail category. Next slide. These are things like restaurants. Dr. Salvino and I were talking earlier, and he made the comment how many shopping centers seem to be so fully occupied by restaurants, or they call them drinking establishments, but places where you go for some type of food or beverage. Repair and maintenance of our vehicles and things, that's only growing. Personal and laundry services, that's a little bit of an oddball. This is stuff that comes from the governmental reporting agencies. Amusement arcades, bowling places, things like that were on the rise. It's going to be kind of remain to be seen if those and fitness and recreation centers will reopen as robustly as COVID passes. I think to Tony's point, that gets back to sort of this herd immunity concept and when people feel more comfortable being in more confined spaces together. Telecommunications is certainly here to stay. That's not going anywhere in any time in our lifetime, probably. Next slide. These are, I'm happy for y'all to take these slides if you want them. This just gives you a little more information on the transformation of retail from hard goods retailing, if you will, to dining, other service type atmosphere. And this comes back into the locational stuff I want to talk about as we get further into the slides. You can go to the next one. This is just more information on what kind of things have been sort of declining. If we go to the next slide, this shows you things that are increasing. And as you can see, in the restaurant and drinking place category, things have exploded. We'll talk about that more in a minute. Next slide. Once again, a little granular, probably not extremely interesting, but this shows you what things have been growing versus what have been declining. And that below selected services, that line, those are the kinds of things. None of this is a surprise to anybody on this call tonight because we all observe these or frequent these in our communities. Next slide. So what kind of bricks and mortar are growing? There's several categories. One is what you would call the treasure hunt category. That would be stores like TJ Maxx, Burlington, Marshall's, store where their merchandise changes weekly or every few weeks, and they offer deep discounts on branded merchandise. That, once again, this kind of plays into the individuality of people's shopping habits. It also is a testament that a large part of the economy are value oriented and are not going to be internet shoppers, particularly in terms of soft goods like clothing, where you want to see fit, color, etc. On an instant. Same thing with home goods. That's a TJ Maxx company where your home accessories. Ulta Beauty has done extremely well, continues to do well. And then of course the myriad of fast food, we'll talk about that more in a minute, but that has exploded over COVID, so that's been a real positive. The question marks for the bottom category where we talk about fitness and group fitness and exactly where that's headed. It was on a tremendous boom pre-COVID. It's been a little slower to restart post-COVID. Also, neighborhood or convenient medical uses, whether that's eyeglasses, general medicine, even orthodontics, are becoming more prevalent as services. Next slide. So these are just a few things about what is working. When I talk about retailers that truly understand their customer and kind of return to the good old days. Probably you all have experienced this, but you probably have favorite stores where people, or restaurants or other places, where you feel like people know you and they care about you and they're interested in you and what they can do to provide you better service. To some degree, that's why stores like Ace Hardware with individual service assistants can be more popular frequently than the big box hardware type stores. This whole concept of multi-channel, omni-channel, probably everybody on this call has utilized the curbside pickup, the order ahead, whether it's for groceries, general merchandise. That's here to stay. That's not going anywhere. Mentioned the treasure hunt stores already. Services, nail salon, massage therapy, even waxing, day spas, hair salons. Those are all things that are absolutely not e-commerce portable. You can't do those online. Restaurants and quick service. Not only have they exploded and had extremely good run through COVID, the emphasis on drive-thrus is here to stay. Starbucks, Bojangles, KFC, all those, we do business with all of them. Most of them will not even consider a site unless they can have a drive-thru. That just gets back to one, the COVID sort of safety feel, but then also just the portability of the product that they sell and how popular that has become. We mentioned medicine, entertainment. That was on a real uptick before COVID. We'll see how that returns when people get more comfortable. But the bottom line is none of the things in these categories are things that can be replaced online. Online works very good for commoditized type products or products where a review is good enough. You don't really need to see them or touch them, but there's an awful lot of things that we consume. You probably all know this, but consumption is about 70% of our GDP every year, and we as a population consume a whole lot of stuff, and only about 20% of that can be attributed to being able to purchase it online. Next slide. So looking forward in terms of retail, Tony's assessment of enclosed malls is very good. I was thinking about my own activity with those, which is limited, but we have participated in malls that have gone to office spaces. We have participated in big boxes that have gone to churches, to indoor storage facilities, to all kinds of things. So the bricks and mortar, for the most part, are being redeployed, not in every case, but the most part are being redeployed in positive ways. I think that'll continue. A lot of times those malls are still in good areas. They have a lot of infrastructure that's hard and expensive to duplicate, whether that's the buildings themselves, the parking, the utilities that come to those. So they have a lot of attributes that can be used for other things. One of the big question marks, though, is what Tony mentioned, and that is, who knows what's going to happen with office space occupancy? And that's a big question mark. That's a big unknown in the commercial real estate industry right now. So the other thing that's playing against helping existing retail is that construction costs are very expensive and development cycles are very long. So existing facilities are still getting lots of positive attention, even if it's for different uses. Obviously, what everyone here has experienced and probably frequents are freestanding or small facilities where they can have it, where there's a drive-through, whether it's a Starbucks or a Taco Bell or whatever that may be. One thing that's universal about retail tenants is they all want high visibility. Everybody wants to be seen and they want to be roadside. That's an interesting dynamic because there's only so much roadside. At some point that becomes difficult to accommodate everybody in. Also, the pricing on those properties has not had a COVID fire sale. That type of real estate is still in high demand and is yielding very high prices. I don't think that's going to change. That's for that high visibility, well-accessed property. Also, unanchored centers are making a strong play. So what I want to talk just for a minute about, a couple of things, and then I'll kind of wrap up, is the types of centers that are working. I picked one that we work on in Myrtle Beach just because it has a lot of elements of what we just talked about. This one is at the intersection of Highway 544 and Bypass 17 in the south end of Myrtle Beach. Before you get to the Myrtles Inlet area, sort of the Sockasty area is generally known, not too far from Market Common. Next slide. And you can skip that one. This is the major intersection that it's located, and this is sort of plays to the whole concept of retail synergy. But you can go to the next slide. So this is part of a master plan community that I think is going to be, it talks to a lot of the elements that Tony was talking about, and that is the concept that people may hopefully want to live and work closer proximity to the amenities of life, if you will. This property is a 700-acre property that is master planned to have a large amount of retail as an amenity, which you can see in the bottom corner of this, and then a large amount of residential, which is carefully integrated with the sort of ecology of that particular tract, so that there's lots of wetlands that are preserved, there's lots of sidewalks and walking paths. You can see a lot of wet areas that are ponds. That will be nice amenities for these communities. So this is going to be a really good example of how both residential in a responsible and ecologically responsible way is going to integrate from a lifestyle standpoint with necessary amenities in a bricks and mortar capacity. We are involved, my company's involved with the commercial part of this, but we've had a lot of input and our opinion's been asked a lot about the development of the overall tract. Next slide. What this center does is we started talking about this center 10 or 12 years ago, but now it's coming full circle into its own. One of the concepts you'll hear about in retail real estate, and particularly as we see a shift to services and restaurants and things, is places where people can come and dwell or linger, as they like to say. And those are nice places. All of us here on this call are familiar with favorite places, whether that's the boardwalk at Myrtles Inlet, or downtown Myrtle Beach and its boardwalk, or Charleston and the peninsula, and the quaintness and how enjoyable it is to linger in those areas. All properties are being designed now with that in mind, in some cases more than others. This one has both the big box amenities like Target, Marshalls, and Petco, but it's mixed very well with lingering type Main Street, if you will, but still to integrate some of the critical services and products like Ulta Beauty, for example, or Rack Room Shoes. But it's mixed in with things like Real Hot Yoga, which is a yoga studio, and we're about to have a new Apple computer retailer store in there. Not the Apple store, but something like that. But lots of restaurants will be in drinking establishments are going to be a part of this. Next. This is an aerial view, and it shows that this property kind of offers the best of both. It has some main drag street front retail, if you will, and that's things you can see along Highway 544, and then you can also see that it offers the more lingering type spots that'll be along Saybrook Parkway, as well as the big box sort of necessity retailers of Target and Marshalls and Kirkland's and Ulta and some other stores like that. So this is an occasion where you're probably going to see more of this type of development. Next. You can go to the next. These are just our marketing pieces, but you can see this particular landlord has chosen to use very nice architecture and something that blends long-term and provides that amenity section that Tony was talking about. This, in this case, an amenity for residential, but this could easily be a property that would be built toward or with office space and other things in mind, so that people would have those amenities. And I do agree with Tony, that's what people are going to be looking for. Less travel time and more quality of life. This is just our overall site. The next slide. So that's kind of an overview. So now what I want to talk about just for a minute, and this gets back to what I was originally asked to talk about, and that's the locational analysis of retail real estate. So as long as I've been doing this, and I think you all would agree, just in your own shopping habits, that access is important. You go to places that you remember because you've seen them, that's visibility. You typically go to stores and things that are convenient to your home or your business or both. And in places where more and more that you might linger. But here's the real new thing that's come on the horizon in my 33 years, and that's what we call big data. We all hear about it. You all probably know more about it than I do, but let me show you how we're using that in commercial real estate. So next slide. So this is what we thought was a forward-leaning big data approach 12 months ago or 18 months ago. And in this case, what we've done is on this Saybrook property, look at what the drive time demographics are. The reason that's important, particularly in an area like Myrtle Beach, where you've got the ocean or you've got waterways that form natural barriers, is more so than just drawing a radius ring. How many people can get to you within a reasonable drive time? And we all know that we want to get to the place where we go as quickly and easily as possible, whether it's to eat, to shop at Target, to go to Petco, whatever the case may be. So retailers also want to understand that. And as you can see, in a 10-minute drive time, and typically around 10 minutes, 10 to 12 minutes, tends to be people's sort of threshold, if you will, or what we thought was their threshold of how far they'd be willing to come. So here you can see within 10 minutes, got about 62,000 people. Growth is projected to be good. You can see the households. We know what average household incomes are, things like that. So all of those are really positive. So what's transpired since then is something that you've all heard about. If you flip to the next slide. And this is called mobile data. And Colliers just recently was able to work out a deal with Credit Intel to provide this for us. What this does is it tracks, and we're all being tracked as we speak right now, exactly where we are and what we're doing by way of our cell phone. Now perhaps that privacy stuff will change at some point. I know Apple's getting ready to make some privacy changes to their devices, but this will blow your mind. So next slide. Next slide. So what we noticed, we started hearing about this trend about 3 years ago from sophisticated retailers that had online presence, had an online footprint, whether that was somebody like LL Bean or REI, Recreational Equipment Incorporated, or even a company like, I'm drawing a blank right now, a trading company that has the cute ads on TV. Somebody help me out with that. Others that have, Lululemon is a good example. They knew from their catalog operations, by that I mean their online operations, exactly who was buying stuff where. So they knew that, for example, I'm just picking this as an example, Myrtle Beach might have been good for Lululemon, or an Apple store for that example. And then what they did is they experimented with putting bricks and mortar stores in those areas where they were getting good online traffic. And they found that their stores increased by their sales from those areas increased by about 30%. So what we learned from that is that they knew how to sort of track that because they had their own sort of proprietary internet data from their e-commerce divisions. But what we didn't know is how do you find out more about that? And that's where this mobile data came in. So what you can see in this map is a map showing exactly where people are coming from based on their mobile data. So if you don't think somebody's watching you, somebody's watching you. We are delusional if we think we did. This was a little bit shocking to me, quite frankly. But when we compared this to our drive time demographics, there was a lot of similarities, but it wasn't a complete exact mirror image of our drive time that we thought it would be. So next slide. This slide shows you based on that demographic, that cell phone data, what kind of people are coming. So if you look at it, there's a high percentage in the 15 to 35,000 household income category. Those are probably single people. Those are people that probably are renters that maybe haven't started a household yet. But then if you look at the next high category in the 50 to 75,000 range, that's family. So we're getting a high percentage of both of those at this particular property. Next slide. This just gives you some demographic profiling. I think for those of y'all who lived in that area, none of that's a surprise. But go back one. So this tells you kind of the total population that's being served by this property. So the Myrtle Beach metro area is probably around 400,000 people. This thing's reaching half of that, 200,000 people. That's pretty amazing. Next slide. This shows you how long you spend at those properties. So if you go to shop at those, what hours of day do you typically go? And as you can see, it's between about 11 a.m. and 6 p.m., which is the peak. If you look at shopping patterns in your own household, you'll probably find that to be the truth. Next slide. This shows you what days of the week. Probably no surprise here in this type of shopping. As the week grows on, people do more of their shopping at the type of stores that are at this property later in the week. Next slide. You can keep going. This is just getting more granular. Back up a couple. A little more. Right. So this month, this was interesting, and this kind of follows some of the graphs we've seen earlier. You can see what happened in the dark blue line is the previous year, 19 to 20, and the lighter blue is 20 to 21. But look at what happened in April. That's when the lockdown occurred, March, April. And you can see that that was that forced element in the economy that Tony said he's never seen even in his career. None of us have. But that's what happened, and that attributes to a lot of some down sales that occurred and forced some of those retailers probably out of business to some of those restaurants. But as you can see, how quickly it rebounded starting in May and June, almost to parallel the previous year, which is pretty astonishing that you had a rebound effect quite like that. Now, keep in mind, this is based on real people who visited this property. Next. This just shows you how long people spend at the property, how often they go to the property. You can keep going. Keep going. How many visits? Once again, you look at the 10-mile radius. You have a lot of people, but go to the next slide. This is that 10-minute stuff. So we predicted there were 61,000 people in 10 minutes. They're saying there's actually 54,000 that visited the property. So out of the 61, 54,000 of them visited the property at one time or another. That part of that's the universal appeal of Target. You got a big draw there. But this tells you exactly what's going on. Where they came from. These are the primary zip codes, how far they were away. Next. What counties they came from, where they reside. These are the stores they visited, how often. 128,000 in the course of a year came to Target. 30,000 almost to Marshalls, etc. 11,000 just to Ulta Beauty. Next. So this is just a quote that I picked up actually last year, but it seems to hold true. You can read it for yourself. But what it basically, my assessment of retail is similar to what Tony had to say. There are retail properties that I think will be here to stay. They may transform a little bit in what type of tenants they have in those properties, but something that I've read something about and something I very much believe is that what doesn't get mentioned when we talk about the sort of the I don't know, the antiseptic quality, I guess you will, of e-commerce, where you don't touch or feel anything, you don't really have a real human experience with the online retailer. It's all visual, either in print or on a catalog, is that humans really do seek the company of others, or being in the presence of others. And everybody's different. Some people may be very introverted and they don't need to sit and talk, but they do enjoy sitting in a coffee shop. I've observed this, with earpods on, perhaps drinking a cup of coffee on their device, but very much in the presence of others. Whereas others may enjoy interacting with others, even if it's people they don't know at bars and restaurants. That is the way that, as a species, we are wired up. And retailing provides that outlet in many ways. Even to some, if it's things like shopping. There are people that thoroughly enjoy it almost at a recreational level, both for the excitement of it, the stimulation of it, the products themselves, and the interaction with others. So, yes, some of retail is changing. All of us use probably online retailing. All of us order from Amazon, and that's very convenient. But from a socialization standpoint, I firmly believe it is not going anywhere. It may look and feel a lot more like the Saybrook property, but there's always going to be a need for the convenience factors and the necessities, even if it's things like food. Pre-COVID, over 50% of household food budgets nearly were being spent at dining out. That's going to return, and in some cases it may have returned either in the form of delivery or pickup or drive-through. But I think we all would agree, many of us would agree, that one of the strongest yearnings is to go back out to dinner, to one, enjoy being served, and two, to be in the presence of others, and to be lingering somewhere. So those types of things from a societal level are here to stay. I think a lot of the economic points that Tony made are absolutely spot on. There is the tension and the pressure of higher land prices, higher taxes on property taxes. Those are a real upwind. Greater restrictions on development, which include the environmental aspects of it, some of which are certainly needed. But those are going to continue to be tough things. But by and large, retail is going to be fine. What's interesting from a locational standpoint is things like this mobile data have made it a little more scientific on how people analyze locations and what's a right fit for them. So, hope that was at least partly appropriate in what you're looking for, Dr. Batabial. And I'd welcome any questions, or either now or offline, if people want to talk about it.